granniopteryx, granniopteryx. She knows the truth, she's linking every link.
The worst example of Islamist takeover of a country is unfolding before our eyes in the UK. Dozens of local councils today, elected officials are run by outspoken Islamists who pledge loyalty to the Ummah, the Islamic nation, not to Queen and country or King and country, not to the UK, not to the flag, but to the Islamic nation, and they say it in their languages. And coming back to the beginning, we only have to listen to what they say. Muslim voter participation in elections all across the West, and I've done the number crunching and I've looked at the different countries, and believe me, without going into details, Muslim voter participation is far higher than the average voter turnout in any country. Why? They know that turnout is key. And again, it's about ballots, not about bullets. One office after the other, the aim is to use the democratic process to take control of enough organizations and centers of power, and then to tip the scales entirely. Now, this rings familiar from history. We've seen it done before by other extremist ideologies, and I don't think that we should be fooled by today's Islamists.
That was Jonathan Conricus, who was the Israeli spokesman during most of the aftermath of the October the 7th horror. Now, you want to hear an old lady swear? Well, stick around, chaps, because there's stuff I'm going to be talking about that needs strong language, and we'll start here. For Christ's sake, everyone, wake up and smell that Turkish coffee about to froth over the edge of the jadwa and make a mess of your countertop. I'm Granniopteryx. Let's get on with it. Last week, I uploaded a video of a chat with Potkin Azameh. You may not have seen it. Potkin was born in Iran, came to Britain in his early teens, stayed here because of the Islamic Revolution, and has dedicated much of his life to exposing the shenanigans of the Iranian regime on British soil. In the video he shared with me, he was talking about Iranian bots masquerading as British people in an effort to change the political narrative. I can't remember the exact names, but he quoted stuff like some Iranian calling himself Jamie from Glasgow, and it was a well-established account. He supported Celtic, he talked about local issues, and he was all hot for Scottish independence. After the Israelis bombed the Iranian state broadcasting facility, Jamie from Glasgow disappeared, as did hundreds of his fellow Scottish colleagues. Now, cards on the table. I think Scottish independence is a bad idea, but even objectively, anyone has to admit that an independent Scotland will weaken Great Britain. And since Scotland has a very rocky economy, oh yeah, you can say what you like about the oil, and is administered by people even less talented at governance than the present Labour government down south, and that's saying something, an independent Scotland will become prey to all sorts of buyouts from people interested in destroying Britain, and that's apart from the fact that Scotland forms an important part of the watch that Britain keeps on the Atlantic and the North Sea and the areas around there. So it's not really surprising that Iran is working to encourage that particular path to ruin. Potkin was talking about all the ways Iran is digging itself into British culture. He was referring to Iran because that's his particular area of study. And you know what? Nobody was listening. Just look at the viewing figures. It's enough to drive anyone worried about this, enough to drive us mad. I should imagine that most of you watching this, I'm sort of preaching to the choir here, aren't I? That you're aware of the problem, but it's as if the rest of the country is just, it's not just ignorant of the problem. It's they appear to refuse even to countenance the possibility of a problem. And that runs all the way through from the bottom to the top, but particularly at the top. For fuck's sake, wake up, you people. We are being invaded and you're arresting people for pronouns. That video of Jonathan Conricus, he's talking about the way Britain's being taken over by Muslim fundamentalists. That's what he's telling us, that the British administration is complacent. It thinks it can't happen here. And he should know about that, because the Hamas invasion of Israel happened mostly because of the complacency of the army, the intelligence services and the government. I mean, there was one really awful case of a whole lot of female observers who were telling them that there was something going on and they weren't taking any notice of them. I think all the girls were killed. It's just horrible, but they were just too complacent. Oh no, we're too big and important. It can't happen here. Well, they learnt their lesson. Perhaps we could learn from them without the sort of bloodshed that happened there. And we can also learn, by the way, from Raja Miah. And he's giving the same message. Speak, Raja.
In every town where Pakistani clan networks have entrenched themselves, a second political system has grown in the shadows, operating beyond democratic norms and outside any meaningful public oversight. The Bravary does not answer to the people it claims to represent, and it has been allowed to flourish by politicians who abandoned the very communities they were elected to defend. It is protected by fear. It is nourished by silence. And those that should have stopped it surrendered that responsibility years ago. This is the enclave state. It is not a conspiracy. It is not an exaggeration. It is a reality that anyone paying attention can see, and that everyone in power has chosen to ignore.
And he was talking there about what he calls the biradari, which means the brotherhood. And well, I should think it's pretty much self-evident what's going on there. Now, Raja is talking about Pakistani Muslims, not Iranians. And Pakistani Muslims are Sunni. And Potkin was talking about Iranian Muslims who are Shia. They hate each other's guts. I doubt there's much crossover or coordination between these two movements. And yet, still, it's the same message, because that's Islam. The whole point about Islam is to conquer and subdue any territory that it's in. We have two different Islamist groups intent on the conquest of the UK and subsuming us into a Muslim ummah that doesn't care much for the natives, but just wishes to enslave and bleed it for the good of Islam. Here's, I shall remind you, the man who won the council seat in Yorkshire a few months back.
Don't you think Gibson is a win for the people of Gaza who have been... We will not be silent. We will raise the voice of Gaza. We will raise the voice of Palestine. Allahu Akbar.
So he's a local councillor in Hare Hills and Gipton. Was he talking about potholes, bus services, care facilities? Nothing. Just Palestine, which isn't Palestine, of course. It's a rallying cry to Muslims. Palestine is an excuse, not a goal. If they were worried about the Arabs in Palestine, they'd be worried about the Arabs in Syria. No, they're not a bit of it, or the Yemen, or whatever. No, they're not bothered. But that's another matter. Whatever it isn't Britain. And the biradari that Raja Mia talks about isn't Britain either. It's Pakistan. And that's why Iran is putting so much effort into its attempt to take over the British discourse. And if nobody does anything about it, and Islam does take over the place, it's not going to be a brutally enforced era of Muslim stasis and ignorance, which you can sort of negotiate by keeping your head down, like in the Ottoman Empire for 500 years of complete non-development. What's going to be happening is a perpetual turf war between Sunni and Shia, which, if we're not careful, will express itself far more vigorously than a few bots on the internet. Think what's happened to Iraq and Syria with its Muslim turf wars. It can't happen here, I hear you say. We have the British Museum. We have the Leeds Town Hall. Oh, it's beautiful, you know. The reference library. It's just gorgeous Victorian architecture. It's so solid. It'll last forever. It can't happen here. Well, yes, it bloody well can. And it will happen because people aren't listening to people like Azameh. I'll leave that thought with you while I go and answer the door. Maybe it's the police. See you next time, I hope. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.